Okay, so this is a short answer, right? There's two covenants of promise that you need to keep: the Ten Commandments and eating clean. And now you might think about the eating clean, about like where that's talked about. So you got to read Genesis 6 through 9, and it tells you about how Noah, right, made this covenant with God, or God made this covenant with Noah, right? And he offered only the clean animals, right? At his time, right, even Noah knew the distinction between clean and unclean. And then when you read Leviticus 11, the only point of that distinction is to know what is food and what isn't food, right? So Noah knew what was food at his time, right? So this was already established at his time. You're not allowed to eat pork, pigs, but you are allowed to eat cows. Okay, and then so you continue reading in Genesis 8 and 9 or whatever, and then you see how Noah offered only the clean animals to God, and the sacrifice for the offering, it's also including him eating them too. But he offered this, and then now God made that covenant with him, right? I won't flood the earth again. I'm gonna put this bow in the sky, but now your side is to not eat any of the blood, right? And the blood of what? Because you're never even eating the unclean animals. So it's the blood of the clean animals. Okay, so this is the first covenant of promise, right? Don't eat unclean animals, and I won't flood the earth again. Okay, now we got that out of the way. Now, really addressing your question, because this is really the big distinction, right? So, the Ten Commandments or the whole law, right? The whole 613 laws. Okay, so, and I'll first read Ephesians 2 to tell you about those two covenants of promise. For we are his workmanship, created in Yeshua Messiah unto good works, right? You're created for these good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. So, in the Old Testament, God ordained these good works that you should do now. Right, and it's gonna tell you that it's these two covenants of promise that you're supposed to be doing right now. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past, right? So before you were a Gentile in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called circumcision in the flesh made by hands. That at that time, when you were a Gentile, you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants, plural, of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now by the blood of Messiah, right, you're made nigh to all these things, right? So you're made nigh to the covenants of promise. And now, if you keep those covenants of promise, you're grafted back into the commonwealth of Israel, right? Now you are part of Israel. And that's what you want to be, because there's no Gentile gate into the kingdom. There's only 12 gates for the 12 tribes of Israel. So, and now more verses about telling you that it's not the whole law, the 613 laws, but just the Ten Commandments, right? Because Yeshua, he ended something, right? This is prophesied about in Deuteronomy 18. And you see it plenty of other places like Isaiah 52, Isaiah 61, about this refreshing, right? The good tidings, the gospel, right? The gospel is that Yeshua ended the sacrificial law and refreshed the original law of God, the Ten Commandments. So Colossians 2:14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. So you have to understand that the handwriting of ordinances was what Moses wrote with his hand. This is the sacrificial law. Moses, he did not write the Ten Commandments, right? God wrote that with his finger in stone. So what could be nailed to the cross? The book of the law, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. Okay, now Galatians 3:19 is a perfect verse to point this out as well. Wherefore then serve the law? Right, this is talking about the sacrificial law, and I'll explain it right now. It was added because of transgressions. So, was it like if this law is talking about the Ten Commandments, then that means that the Ten Commandments was added because of some transgression. When you read, though, in Exodus 19, there was no transgression that caused it to be added, because it was a blessing that God was giving to Israel. But they did transgress the Ten Commandments by making them on calf and idol, and then God added the sacrificial law. Right, so that law that Paul is talking about, that everybody gets confused, is only about the sacrificial law, not about the Ten Commandments. And Peter tells you that they're going to twist Paul's words to their own destruction, because they think that Paul's talking about the Ten Commandments, so they forget about the Ten Commandments when he's not talking about the Ten Commandments. He's talking only about the sacrificial law. So it was added, Right, the sacrificial law is added because of transgressions till, right, so it had an ending point, a cutoff point, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. Okay, another place where it says that there's a cutoff point is John 19, verse 30, where Yeshua says, "It is finished," quoting Deuteronomy verses 31, or Deuteronomy 31, verses 24 to 26, where the book of the law is placed on the outside of the Ark of the Covenant until it was finished, when Yeshua said, "It is finished."